You're listening to the episode of Mr. Allie's Neighborhood. This is a place we're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, how y'all doing, everybody? Another week, another beautiful day, another great day in the neighborhood, another great day in Burleson. I have Adam Russell here, candidate for place 6. And as you all probably know, he's running unopposed, but he's taking it pretty seriously, which I think is a really good sign for us. I'm trying to find a question here that, here it is. All right, now I got it. But there was a question that I'm going to ask you right off the top because that way we can get it out of the way. But David Hadley asked a question, and apparently y'all were friends, right, from the PNZ? Okay, so we'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about the bond. We're also going to talk about, I found out over the weekend, I guess you found out at the same time I did, that we'll be needing a new city manager more than likely because Mr. Langley is a sole finalist, which means pretty much that unless something bizarre happens, he's going to go into the city of Kyle. And that's God bless him. Good luck. Hope it turns out to be, got turned down to sound. I keep doing that wrong. But I hope he's happy and not. I've never met Mr. Langley, so there you are. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit off the track. I'm trying to concentrate on two different things. It's time to share all this stuff now. And,
Right.
Yeah. So, boom. I'm getting better at it. Oop, dadgummit. One more time. And just things keep popping up. I'm going to try one more time. They keep popping up ahead of me, and, before I could get my finger down in time. All right. Now we can talk. All right. Now we're good. But anyway, before we go into that, we're going to talk about Mr. Langley's situation, or position, rather, not him personally. And we're going to talk about the bond, because that's a big issue in the campaign. We're also going to talk about your experience with the P&Z. And also, Mr. Hadley, David Hadley, brought in a pretty good question about financing some of these projects. I'll read it verbatim so I don't mess it up after the commercials, but that's a pretty serious question, because a lot of people, how are we going to square this growing community without having to either raise taxes or cut services? Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's going to be tough. And I guess that's why, we're good to have you on board as a banker. You understand these things better than most, I'd imagine. Okay, let's talk about some of the sponsors. We have a new one today. I'll get to that in a minute, but also one of my two original sponsors. The first one is CrossFit Burleson. Thank you, Daniel. I hope you're doing well. CrossFitBurleson.com will be the page you look at to find out the programs, the training, the classes, all the above. It's over in 317 Southwest Wilshire behind Stone City Soup. It's a good place to go work out, pretty serious workout, but it's got plans, programs, and supervision, so you'll be good to go. Also, Shandy, real estate. She had a posting about real estate issues today. We all know she's running for place 4 in the school board, and she'll be on the show a week from tomorrow. But she primarily is a real estate agent, and she does really, really good at this job. She does well. I guess that's the right English. She does well at it, and she's very knowledgeable. And so if you're looking to move in and around this area, talk to Shandy because she knows what she's doing. Also, a friend Otto at our place. I feel like I need to rent out a cot back there these days because I've been there a lot. But it's a great place for a restaurant. I'm sure you've been there. You probably take your boys there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do they get? The pie or?
No, they always get pancakes.
Pancakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's their calling card. That and chicken fried steak. That's what I get for lunch. I really do like their chicken fried steak. So our place restaurant on the highway in Allsbury. Thank you, Otto. Thank you also to Chris over at Wild Cigar and Culture. They have drink specials on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, about 3 to 7. So go over there, check out Wild Cigar and Culture, get yourself a decent drink, a decent smoke, and have a decent conversation. Because it's a good place to do it because it isn't loud and blasting. I like that part of it. Us old men like to hear ourselves think. Also, we had last week Tiffany Nico on last Tuesday. Check out locallifetx.com. for these kind of specials she's running on summer ad-related stuff, because there's a lot of promotions and whatnot to go on during the summer. So she has some specials for your ads, different cost points at different sizes and whatever else. She has in fact, were you in the last issue, weren't you?
Yes.
The political issue, yes.
Correct.
She was on there showing that, and there you go. I'm sure Martha has it in the refrigerator. You think?
I know I need to get some extra copies for other family members.
Yeah, so. I guess. Yeah, I was in it about a year ago and change for just an article they were doing, And I got several. Here, Mom. Here, send one to my uncle or whatever, that kind of stuff. Well, I know Otto sometimes has some displayed, but I bet they're already gone by now. But if you contact Tiffany, I bet she can get you a few more. But anyway, check out Local Life because it's a great place to do advertising. It's 30,000 homes, and it goes right to the user. So it's a good place to get your product and service right in front of the ultimate buyer. Also, thank you to Southern Gym. After all this is over, you need to take Martha to the Southern Gym. All right. They're running specials right now. They're moving downstairs, and they're trying as fast as they can. God bless them. But every time they get like, okay, 2 weeks to go, and then some kind of supply hang up or contractor issue or whatever else. So now mid-May is the target date, and they're trying to, move as quickly as can. They're also having a great sale, trying to, I guess, have less inventory to move, I guess. So right. Having a great sale. So Southern Gym, as of now, on top of the windmill building, but soon at the bottom. Also, thank you to First Do Detailing Services. Caleb Patino will come to you. He will wash your car, power wash it. He showed me his whole outfit about 2 weeks ago. I met with him because he's a BNI member, as is Gayla is. And he showed me the whole outfit, and he can do it right there. So you can do it at your house, you can do it at your place of business, and get it cleaned, you can get it detailed. And a couple of our BNI friends have used him, and they said that their car actually was better than when they drove it off the lot. Very brand new. They said it was an incredibly good job. I couldn't do detailing. I don't have that kind of patience, But anyway, if you're interested in that kind of service, 817-776-0478. That's 817-776-0478 or firstdodetailing.com. Now, also, we have another BNI friend of mine, Dee Dee Simpson. She was on last Thursday for Thrive. It's a total business package. It isn't just, social media presence. It's a whole thing. It's a marketing program. It's how to handle all your business aspects. Check out Thrive. If you have a business and you're trying to get it out in front of the public in various different ways, and you want to be able to have a program that helps you deal with, professionally and with clients and, the billing and all this, you name it. I use it myself. It's a really good deal. So call Dee Dee at 520-955-7860. That's 520-955-7860. Or look at Thrive. It's THRYV.com. Thank you also to another BNI member. See, this is why the networking group is where to work for me. That's why I've been advertising it myself. Texas Farm Bureau with Melissa. Texas Farm Bureau will give you the best rates they can. And Melissa will look at your insurance and see if she can save you some money. And if she can't, she'll tell you. If she can, she'll help you save some money. She did that with me. I got upgraded insurance, and I pay a little bit less a month on my mortgage for it. So it's a really good deal. Also, it's storm season, so you better make sure your housing insurance is up to date because you don't want to get a nasty surprise later. And lastly, our newest one. This is brand new today. Lisa Smith and Morris Smith. They're wonderful people. Also BNI service team. They're Stop Restoration. Okay, I say it right. Stop Restoration, where they get it right the first time. She has us well trained for that. Get it right the first time. And the thing about Stop Restoration, I was talking with them last week about their business, and I always equating their services with like damage from tornado, damage from water damage from rainstorm, whatever else. It's much more comprehensive than that. You have a leaky water system, or you have, hot water heater leaks and causes damage, or toilet leaks, or you have other damage and mold issues. They deal with mold, and it isn't just anybody can deal with mold. You have to be certified. You have to go through all these testing procedures, and you have to get the certificate from the state. So dealing with the mold issues, it's a big deal. It's not like anybody can do it. Very few people actually do it. And Lisa and Morris are great people. So if you have some sort of damage, either caused by some natural thing, or just a mechanical breakdown, or just whatever, you need to talk to them. So call Stop Restoration. Their office is right off Chisholm Trail here in Crowley, so it's very close by. So thank you, Lisa, for joining our team. Whew. We do have a couple more nonprofits. Lost Oak, next Saturday, it's next Sunday, actually, 12 to 6 over at Lost Oak Vineyard and Vibes over at Lost Oak Winery. It's going to be a fundraiser for Harvest House. Our friend Jennifer will be there. And you get the tickets there for the fundraiser online. So pull them up online, hit the QR code. It's $20 at the door, $15 if you order them early. Also, you can buy and or donate a glass of wine. That's going to be a good idea. You buy a glass of wine for a charitable cause, listen to some good music, a nice day, I'm sure. It's going to be a lot of fun. So check it out. Call Harvest House if you have other questions. All right. I made it. All right. I want to go ahead and ask the question right off the top from Mr. Hadley. I need to go back to it. And so so it's just going to take a little bit of time for me to get to it. But basically, it's asking about the bond issue, not the bond issue, but how to square the costs of a growing city without having to go to bonds, and also how to do it on a budget. In a sense. Here, I'm going to read it here verbatim so I don't mess it up. I've read a couple of places that you would prefer that the capital projects be funded through cash rather than debt. That's right, isn't it? I thought I heard it too. I would agree. However, there is no cash other than the general fund balance, which is in the 20 to 25% range, which is required to cover a couple of months of operational cash. I know the school district does the same. The only other source of cash would be the reduction of expenses or the increase in taxes, which I assume you are against. Is that a good assumption?
Well, you can be against. I'm always against raising the tax rate.
Okay.
But it's funny, as soon as I get into wanting to go up into city council, it's a big, complex issue at that point.
Okay. Well, I wanted you to be able to answer for yourself if you're for or against whatever your position on taxes. From our last conversation, I know that you want to keep taxes as low as possible. Everybody says that, but I think one of the emphasis that you ran on is, maintain fiscal control, and let's not get crazy here.
Yes.
All right. That being said, what areas specifically do you believe need to be cut in order to generate that kind of cash required to meet the capital strategic plan, and what would the impact be on operations of those cuts? So, what areas would you want to have to, if you can't raise taxes, or you don't want to raise taxes, but we need to raise cash, the only alternative, again, I guess, is to lower expenses in some manner. Where would that happen is what he's asking.
David always asks good questions.
Sure he does.
Without diving into the budget, see, we're getting ready to get that cranking off here in June. Is going to be the budget discussion, to be able to go through and look at all that. And then that's where we ought to be able to find, maybe we can make some cuts. I couldn't tell you right now what I want to start cutting without looking and diving into all that. But what I would like to see, and I don't know if this, and I haven't seen this at the city council, we don't get quarterly budget variance reports to see where we are. And because I think it's at the end of the year, we feel that, well, this is where we were on the budget. Well, I'd like to know ahead of time what areas or what departments are either under budget or over budget. Or maybe there's some money can be shuffled around during the year.
But shuffling money, it takes a vote of the council.
Correct.
So it's a lot more complex to say, okay, we got a few extra bucks here, let's just put them over there. And there's not a lot of autonomy in doing that. That has to be a council decision.
And I would like to keep that a council decision.
Of course, and as I would.
And I mentioned this at a council meeting last week or a couple of weeks ago, that when I said that Mr. Scott and I were available for special sessions to go over this budget, but is that the power of the purse is probably our biggest power there as the council, is the control of the money of the city. And I'd like to keep our thumb on it as much as possible.
Well, it sounds like you're saying, before you can answer David's question, you need to see the facts first.
Right.
Okay. And I'm sure David understands that y'all are friends. So he was asking you a question to help you in a sense, so make that clear. He serves with you on P&Z, if I recall. But I know you have to look at the budget. I know the budget's publicly available, but I guess as a council member, you'll find out, well, the number you're reading at it gives it more relevance or more context, maybe is the better word. Because you said, okay, we're going to spend X amount on streets. I don't know if that's a lot or a little, if that's too much or too little. Who knows? So I guess that's part of the value of being a council member.
And some things I want to see too is, I'd like to see some stress testing, because and this is all bank stuff, but I'd like to see a summary page when we go to the budget. It's like, okay, I want all the bonds that we have that are approved but not issued. Let's pretend they're 100% issued, and I want to see how that affects the budget. And then I want to do maybe a 10% reduction in either property values or property tax collections to kind of stimulate a recession, so to speak, and see where that number is.
But that's just
And it's
testing,
kinda,
right?
correct. Yeah,
Okay,
just testing, because I want to
right.
kind of see, where we're going to be in case, because I know there's some concerns maybe in the future, next couple of years, there's probably going to be a little bit of a downturn,
Probably.
which would affect property values, which would affect things. Now, they budget at the city, that I think they use a 3% growth rate. But, let's look at it at a negative 3% growth rate. What does that do? I'd like
Well,
to see that information.
It's similar. What you're saying reminds me of what happened in the school system about 12 years ago when we were going through all the problems in the economy. And BISD had like 3 different budget scenarios: bad, terrible, catastrophic. Now I'm not saying we have to do that, but I
Right.
think it would be a wise idea to say, okay, let's have a budget based on 0 growth or maybe -2 or whatever. Now, a lot of people, they I think they know intellectually y'all don't set property values, but when they pay that tax bill, they blame y'all.
Right.
So, that's part of it. Is it your goal to try to continue to decrease at least the rates as best you can?
As best you can. We can't go too far, because then if we ever come to a situation where you had to raise it and it's more than a certain amount, then that has to go to the voters. And
Right.
they'd probably say no. And maybe.
Yeah. Well, no, I
depends on
think
how
you're
you
right.
sell it,
Well, it's tough. It is always tough because, the last time I remember a tax election I could be involved in was about 12 years ago with the school system, and had like 4,000 votes or something like that, and lost by 8. That's how close it was. And so, it's really, really tough.
Right.
And then the bond election, what was it, like 21 votes last May?
Yeah, 25 on one of them and 100 on the other.
Yeah,
So,
and so it's very, very close. And asking people to pay out more money, you got to make a really good case for it. You better make a real good case for
Right.
it.
and it's hard. I wish I could run and say, I want to lower everybody's taxes. But like I said, without, you get in the weeds of that stuff and you see where all it is, because at the same time, you got to be competitive in the police officers' salaries. You have to be
Right.
competitive in the fire salaries and all that. Well, that's, 6, 7, 8% growth. And so where are you going to get the money from?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. I mean, the cut in hopefully everything in that budget, every city service is vital.
Right.
If we don't have a non-vital services, or should they be in the budget in the first place?
Right.
But to be competitive, not just with the police and the fire salaries, but just to have good help at City Hall.
Exactly.
'cause
Exactly.
with their wages are rising in certain areas, you got to be competitive, not just with other cities, but with private sector.
Right.
And so that's
And we
a problem.
found that out when they had to do a big increase for the police department. And it was right after they had approved the budget. But then, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but 50% of the general fund is police and fire. It's public safety. And it's a huge,
I did not know
expense.
that. I thought maybe streets might be the biggest expense.
yeah.
But for security purposes, huh?
Correct.
Okay, I guess that makes sense because the biggest expense for a school system is the teacher salaries and
Right.
whatnot. But I just thought the streets might be the number one.
Well, to give you an example, Fire Station 4 is coming, and you're going to need 15 new firefighters because it's 3 shifts.
Right.
And then just the operational cost of that, then you have to build the building, and then the operational cost of that per year is about $2 million.
Right.
And so-
and that kind of gets to my point. We're a growing community, whether, we go through a recession or not, it might slow it down, but we're still going to grow. Shandy talks about this all the time. We are in a perfect position because we're right on the edge of an urban area in Fort Worth. I mean, we can get to it pretty easily, yet we're not part of Fort Worth, and we're on the highway, and, we still have room to grow out here. How are we going to be able to meet these increased expenses just because of growth? I mean, even if our economy does slow down, we're going to have larger budgets because we're going to need a couple more police officers, like you mentioned about the fire. We're going to have to expand the infrastructure and the sewer system, the trash collection, on and on, the wear and tear on our roads because of increased traffic. That's going to be a real chore, I think, trying to keep a cap on the tax rates, the tax revenues, without really cutting into the services area.
Right. And you're hoping that this growth, especially what's coming on the west side, if that really does take off, then you will be getting some offsets with sales tax and different things. But it's you got to build it first, and until that gets built and starts paying, it's still a net negative.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also that maybe we ought to build a wall around Burleson so you can only shop here.
That's right.
Well, no, I really do take that into account. Particularly when I was employed as a school teacher, I did try to shop locally because they paid my salary. And, in a sense, I wanted them to stay in business.
Right.
And now that we have less and less need to go to Forth, we go to Forth because, we want to change and all this, and there's maybe a place or restaurant up there we like to go to, but we can do just about what we want to do here. And what I've seen planned and hear about planned, and of course, the man who knows all about future city growth and businesses, Alex Phillips, who says nothing. He never.
He's a good poker player.
Well, I appreciate his discretion. I've had him on a couple of times. I said, "Tell me what's coming." Not on your life, Sarah Carlson has a point here. So I think this is an excellent time to have a council member with your expertise serving the community, and I agree on that. Being in the banking field, you probably know pretty intimately what's going on business-wise here in Burleson. And plus, understand that the city's going to switch all their financial accounts to First National. No, that's a joke. No, I don't even know where they keep their money. Actually,
yeah, they have to put it out for. Everybody gets to look at it, and they have to do a thing. It's just it's a lot going on.
So before some of the Facebook people get worked up, that was humor.
Right.
Okay, and I very much appreciate the reasonable approach to balancing expenses and revenue. Managing growth requires experience and a good understanding of the situations we're going to see, as well as the options and the impacts of each option. I grew up in a town that grew even a little faster than Burleson. I grew up in Plano back in the 70s and early 80s, and it just blew up like this too. And of course, I'm a kid. I'm not paying attention to city government and politics, but I bet they were going through the same thing, and I know the school systems were, because we couldn't build the schools fast enough. And we are in a situation here in Burleson that some hard decisions are going to be made. I hope you know that going into this.
Yes.
You knew that.
That was one of the reasons why I was wanting to go.
Really, because you felt like you could bring that to the table.
Yes. It's not necessarily that I had a platform or anything. It's just that the timing kind of worked itself out, open seat, and kind of been on my mind for a few years, and just felt it was the next step.
So your motivation, I bet I'm going to just put these words into your mouth. Your motivation is to make a city your two boys can grow up in.
That's right.
Is that a good way of putting it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a good plan. How old are they now, by the way?
They're 10.
Okay. They look pretty young, but anyway, that being said, there's going to be some hard decisions, and not everybody's going to be nice about the decision you make. You ready for that?
Right. I'm ready.
Okay. You're going to get some email, and they're going to be, some will be polite but disagreeing. Some will be impolite and disagreeing, and that's not anything new. That's the nature of the business, and always has been. But are you ready for all that?
Yes.
Let's kind of segue into something else about that. I want to go back to the bond towards the end, but really, probably the most immediate pressing issue was the soon departure of Mr. Langley.
Right.
You're going to be involved in that decision in finding a new one.
Correct.
What would you be looking for?
Somebody who can continue the vision of the council. I was involved when we hired Brian. I kind of like the way that the city did the interview process, because they allowed members of the certain boards to come and do an interview as well. So I've got some experience with that. And I'm assuming, not putting words in the council's mouth, but if it's before May, the election, that they would maybe let Tommy be acting. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have an interim.
Keep it going.
Yeah, we'll have an interim.
Have an interim.
Yeah, it's not you're not going to be able to hire anybody probably for months.
Exactly. Right. But there's there's four things that the city council appoints, and it's the city secretary, the city manager, the city judge, and the city attorney. And those are the only four that we have control over.
Right.
And then, of course, you pick the city manager, and the city manager manages the day-to-day operations of the city. And that's probably one of the most important things.
Well, it's Sarah had mentioned Tommy Ludwig is going to be the interim. I'm sure that'd be the case.
Right.
For as far as I know, I have not met Mr. Ludwig either. I would not doubt he might even be a candidate for the job.
Yeah, they'll open it up to everybody.
Oh, sure.
And I'm sure that the interim can put his name in the hat.
Well, sure. No, but this is a process going to take a while. But you kind of hit on already about the hiring process. It isn't like, just the 7 of y'all by yourselves.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of community input, as it should be.
Yeah, and a lot of staff, they will have meetings with different areas of the city too.
Would a council member be able to say veto of that by any chance, or is it basically going to be, because ultimately it's going to be your vote?
Right.
I mean, you'll have all this process.
Right.
But is it going to be, does it need a unanimous decision or just a majority?
I think it's just a majority, but you always try to, and I think this happened last time, you try to get a consensus. I think they do it in exec, and then to make it look unanimous.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't think you want to bring somebody in that it wasn't a unanimous decision.
Well, that's kind of like how schools handle it. They do all their hiring. The only person that I know they deal with is superintendent, and all that's executive session. So, as far as the final vote will be done in public, but I'm sure there'll be some haggling in the executive session.
Oh, yes.
And that's the way these things work.
There's 7 of us, so we all have our own opinions.
I bet y'all come to a pretty mutual decision. I don't foresee this to be some drawn out crisis process, because for most people, they want to hire the best person, man or woman. But the way we have it set up, it's going to be pretty much an objective hiring as opposed to like cronyism. I don't see anything like that happening. You might want to bring in somebody to interview, but they still have to pass that interview.
Correct.
And go through the process. I mean, I know a couple of people in city management. Yeah, it'd be great for this job, but one person can't get it done all by themselves. Right. I like that.
Right. And the city manager doesn't necessarily stay for a long period of time. That position, it fluctuates. It's 5 to 7 years, and then they go do something else.
Well, they move up to a bigger city and make bigger money. From what I read about being a city manager, big town, small town, it's a headache regardless.
Right. Oh, yes.
Because you're basically caught between two masters, the staff and all the people in the departments that you have to run them and all that. And then you got these 7 people on the board with all their various personalities and goals and agendas and whatever else. It can be pretty rough. I equate the city manager job to being a school superintendent.
Right.
And I think a lot of people who don't know our system that well think, that y'all have this rather unlimited power. I mean, you really don't. The city manager makes all the daily decisions.
Correct.
And it's seen as inappropriate for a city council member or the mayor to intervene in the city management day to day.
Correct.
I mean, there's broad agendas maybe and more broad wishes and goals I may want them to achieve, but for any one of the 7 to get involved in the day-to-day management is seen as
right. Usually, if there's an issue, you go directly to the city manager because then he would take care of that. Wherever other department
that's a good question. Let's say you had a problem with the streets or whatever. How would you handle it?
You just phone call the city manager. You get whatever information you need, and hopefully the new city manager would allow us to at least speak to the directors and things. It's not like you're asking them to do anything; you're just getting information. And it's always good to have a relationship with the staff as well.
Yeah.
But then when something needs to be done, then you do it through the proper channels, because there's a line there. They don't cross the line into the council's decisions, and we don't cross the line into the manager's decisions. It's always a fun conversation.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of push and pull, because I don't have as much experience with the cities as I do with the school situations, but I have seen it works pretty similar in certain ways. I mean, it's for if you want to have a problem in schools, if you're a school board member, you talk to the superintendent and you work through them.
Right.
And things of that nature. But it's pretty similar. But you already have a relationship with the staff, right?
Right.
Through PNC. How would you characterize it?
I think it's pretty good. I've known some of those that have been, we've had some turnover and things, but there's a lot of people that have been there a long time that I've known as long as I've been involved with the city.
So you won't really have to reintroduce yourself that much, will you? You'll be able to work right in. That's a good thing. But how often does a council member interact with general staff other than the city council? Other city manager, I'm sorry.
I mean, it depends on how often you're up.
I mean, but do you do that a lot? I mean, do council members do that a lot?
I'm sure. As long as I think it's important that the staff knows that the council's has their support as well. Not just the manager's support.
Right. But I guess what I'm getting around to is one should not expect you, if they call you with the problem or they email you the problem and said, my potholes aren't getting fixed, they need to know that you're not going to call the street director right away and say, go fix that pothole. You're going to go to the city manager and say, go look at that situation.
Right.
Does that happen?
And that's kind of how it goes. But but please let me know about the potholes. We'll get it going. Because I mean,
well, that's
people don't think that, or they're not going to call the city manager. They're going to call their council member.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Yeah, but they should expect there is going to be a procedure. It isn't like this isn't like Chicago, where you pick up the phone and go fix that pothole because I said so. Here's a procedure in place, and I like this procedure myself. I like the fact that we still have to have some sort of level of consensus to get things done.
Right? Can you imagine if the seven of us were trying to direct everything going? Yeah, we need a central location.
I would not. No, that would not be good. And I think it also, if you had that kind of situation, it would attract the wrong kind of candidates. Because it'd be people getting into the city government to pursue personal agendas. And I know you have goals, and I know you have, I don't know if I call it a platform or such, but you have certain things you want to see. But you got to work through the others to get it done.
Right.
What are those other things that you'd like to see happen?
Well, I'd like to see us getting involved at the state level down in Austin again. And I've spoken with Councilmember Johnson or Victoria about
Victoria. She's had experience with that.
Right. I mean, that's right up her alley. And said, next session, we're going to go on a bus and we're going to go down there because they're giving out. They're the ones that provide extra funding and stuff and set different rules. They changed all the rules on development as far as that the cities can't control the masonry requirements and things anymore. And at least to go down there and have a voice and say, hey, just, remember us.
Well,
I'd like to see more involvement.
Well, that's interesting because I teach this Texas government class at Hill, and one of the things I tell them is that it used to be, and not that long ago, a lot of the cities and the schools had a lot more autonomy than they do now, and it seems like over the last couple of decades, the state has imposed themselves a lot more on the cities, and I think for some people they think that you have the unilateral ability to make whatever decisions you want. Same with the schools, and they don't. Right. Because of federal law in particular the last couple of decades, and because of state law. Right. And, I think that we have to go back to a little bit more to the cities have more autonomy because, we have certain issues. West Texas has theirs, right. Panhandle has theirs. Let us handle them.
Right. We know how to handle our own area.
I think so.
And some people may think that that's a waste of time, but honestly, if you're not there saying that we're here, I don't see how that could be a complete waste of time.
It's not a waste of time. They need to hear it. Right. They need to be aware that their decisions are being noticed, if nothing else. That's why, people complain about lobbying, but that's what lobbying is. It's getting your voice out. They need to be aware that, hey, we, representatives, senators, governor, we're watching, and that kind of thing. So. Right. Do you have any other maybe more specific goals of any kind, like more parks? Like that's Victoria's thing,
right? Right. I mean, I would. So, I went through the parks last night because I was thinking, the only parks that have basketball courts is Warren Park, right? And I'm not asking for lighted basketball courts, but maybe the next park we build, it'd be nice to have another basketball court there.
And these are the kind of things city councils deal with. I mean, I'm not going to ask you about should we be in Ukraine or not. I mean, that's a little beyond your pay grade, but still that. Those are the decisions we make,
right? And we have the biggest one that I'm really going to be excited about having a part with is the zoning code update that's coming. They're going to start talking about it this summer, but it's really a lot of people complain about the growth and how we can better manage it. Well, you manage it with that zoning code update because you can. Right now, our districts are so broad that if you were to go online and you look at our zoning code and you look at like commercial zoning district, right, there's all these uses that are just very intense. Like, it's got body shops and lube centers and all that stuff, car washes. And, but when you break it up instead of a commercial, you have a commercial 1, 2, 3, and then you move the uses around, and then you can kind of revamp your the master plan again to go along with that. Then you can kind of pick the areas where you want the heavier stuff.
Well, what's been an issue in the last couple of elections has been multifamily housing, apartments. Do you have a particular view or position about those?
I mean, I see the traffic because I grew up, or I lived in Fort Worth on Bryan Irvin before all the apartments came, and I mean, and I saw the increase in traffic. And I think it's you just have to be smart about it because there's no $80,000 houses in Burleson anymore.
Got that right.
300. I mean, and so people have to find an affordable place to live, and an apartment's a good spot, especially young people. And so you have to have apartments, but I think you can build them in areas where it's easier to get access to the main roads, and then then people go to work, school, what they need to do, without having to crowd up maybe the smaller streets that can't support that kind of intense development at that point.
I always talk with Larry Scott he was on the show, gosh, it'd be about 10 days ago now. And we both kind of, agreed on this, is that, we don't want to create a community where people that work for it, teachers, city staff, whatnot, can't afford to live here.
Right.
We don't want to be like South Lake. I mean, I doubt any of their city staff, unless they have a spouse that makes a lot of money, live in their own community. We want the people that work for our community to be able to live in our community,
right,
and not have to live, in, I don't know, South Town or Keene or something like that, because that's the only place you can find that's affordable. And so, apartments are going to be in our future, whether we like it or not. And also, again, I brought this point out, a lot of people don't realize that if we had a concerted effort to prevent apartments coming here, boy, the federal government's going to come down on us like a ton of bricks. It'd be a civil rights violation, actually, housing rights violation. So we're going to have multifamily housing. We just have to handle it smartly.
Right.
And I understand the concern isn't so much the type of people that come in there. That's I think, a bit bogus. But, I wish we have a way to make sure those apartments are maintained, because what I understand, the city's ability to do that is somewhat limited.
And that's what happens. They're rocking and rolling for 5 to 10 years, and then the maintenance kind of starts slacking, and the complex gets sold a couple of times to different investors.
Right. And
operating it.
The cities don't have the unilateral control to say, hey, to the landlords, upgrade your facilities or else. That's something I wish the state of Texas would bring back, because they used to have that, I believe, to some degree, at least in like building codes and whatever else. I'd like to be able to have some sort of city oversight and make sure that these apartments that are 10, 15, 20 years old still measure up to what we want as a community.
Right.
But I think that we're going to be like any other growing community. There's going to be a lot of multifamily housing, period. And the people that resent that, I got nothing for you. I mean, I don't know what to say to you. It's going to happen. But here's one that's a bit more of an issue also in this current campaign, is that about the bond debts.
Right.
I without getting into the mayor's race, we don't need to talk about that. That's not what this show is about. But we had a certain level of debt in 2020, but we had to add debt to it. Is that a concern to you?
At this point, because we've talked about it a lot, is that the voters decided yes, we needed the extra debt, and so that point's done. But now we have to make sure that money that the voters said it gets spent for what it was supposed to be spent for. Because I think the bond, well, it looked like a lot of that was earmarked. It's still pretty open for where those funds get spent.
That's concerning to me. I mean, I didn't have a vote in that election, not being a resident. I live about 1/8 of a mile out of town, and I'm fine with that, by the way, so forget about expansion. Well, I understand you'd have to have a vote of the citizens.
That's right. You can't do that anymore.
But anyway, but the point is, that was the concern that Ronnie had, Victoria had, Larry has, that there's a lot of money out there that is not specifically tied down. And that concerned them. Does it concern you as well?
Yes, but I mean, that's why we're coming on. It's like, make sure that it's continues to get spent, because they'll start ramping up the police station design and all that coming up. And then another thing is, if we can get some grant money to build some of these roads that were supposed to be in the bond, then what do you do with the bond money that you saved? Well, then maybe you pick another road that wasn't necessarily in the bond, but since you're getting some free money for this, then we use it. We're still using it for roads. We're going to address another one.
Like you said, it's a done deal that the citizens vote on it, and so we have that debt. But are you concerned that with the rising interest rates? I mean, this is in your profession. Do you concerned that because we didn't buy $86 million of debt at one time?
Correct.
we're buying it in pieces,
Right. It's approved but not issued right now. I think we've only issued about 3 million or 1 to 3 million, and then I think there will be some more bond issues coming up in the next budget and you're starting to see the design now for Hewlin to expand it. Well, that'll be a bond issuance, but it comes all out of that money.
These new bond issues, though, are they being priced higher for the interest rates?
So the interest rates have been so interesting. Bond rates are determined by mostly the 10-year Treasury. I'm trying to get technical into this, but it's not like a mortgage rate or things like that.
Right.
And even though Fed funds is at prime, or Fed funds is at 5, so prime rate, which is most commercial borrowers, is at 8.
Yes.
So bond rates are still fairly low.
Okay.
And so you're still looking at a 4 to 5% coupon on these bonds. So if it's $100,000, I mean, it's going to be $1 million bond. Let's say if it's a $100,000 bond, we're going to pay $4,000 in interest a year. So that's the rates are kind of still where they were. It's just that the price that people pay for them has come down a little bit.
Yes.
So it's there's a
here's my concern, and this is Larry's too, is that we patch out or space out, rather is a better word, the purchase of these bonds. At the end point, it's going to be higher, and it's also going to make the value of the bonds we currently hold less. And that's going to be. Is that not a concern?
If you look at our overall, just looking at the financials of the city, we only have about a 3% debt to assessed ratio. Now, I don't want to get that really high, but out of the entire valuation of Burleson, I think it's over $4 billion if you take all the properties, and we only have X dollar amount in debt, so it's about 3 to 4%, which is pretty low. But yeah, that's one thing about when we get to the budget. I want to see what's the budget gonna look like when the bonds are 100% issued. We still have $80 million to go. Well, let's issue them and then see what that dollar amount's going to look like on the budget. I mean, that's going to. I wish maybe they had looked at that before.
Yeah,
but it's hard.
Well, that gets back to David Hadley's question about could you have done these things by cash without issuing a bond?
I don't know about that. I mean, I would if unlike. If you're a business, you want to have cash because if you're going to get a loan, the bank's going to want a down payment. Well, as a city, you can spend a little bit more of your money because you can always issue debt, but you can't issue debt for everything.
Right.
There's certain things that you still have to operate.
Well,
but it's kind of got to have all the facts.
It's complex because a lot of people think debt is debt is debt. That was a theme of the 2020 campaign. I've gotten an education since then about debts. Different types, and COs and GOs and all this other business. And for a lot of people, it's confusing. But is debt is debt is debt? Is that an accurate statement, or is it really the difference in debts does qualify what kind of conversation we're having about it?
Right. I mean, as long as it's debt that's smart to take on. I mean, just it's that you're not just building all this stuff. Some of these cities that pass these bonds for event venue or something.
Oh, yeah.
Just like,
that's another thing I was going to bring up with you in a minute.
But it's not necessarily talking about what we're wanting to do, but I'm thinking, and not to go into school board stuff, but they build these $60 million football stadiums. And I'm thinking,
well,
why?
That is crazy.
How about the education?
Well, I think our stadium is more than adequate for our football teams myself. And I don't know of any push to change that.
Right. I hope, but it's, that's how I would.
Well, that's like Allen and these other places, and they have $60 million football stadiums issued by bond debt. But I'm like, Jiminy Christmas. I mean, I like a good football stadium for the guys and for the ladies play soccer and on and on and on. But let's not get crazy here, But let's talk about the venues. How much time? I'm going to take a look at the clock because I want to. Yeah, we got about 15 more minutes, more or less. Larry and I had a real long conversation about event venues, about the golf course and all this. He is opposed to having the city take on like a tourism arm of the budget and all this other stuff and having the city build a convention center. I was I don't care if it's part of the city or if it's a private arrangement. I just like to have something there. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's time because we have so many events at other venues.
Yeah, like First Baptist or Pathway, right? Yeah.
And I very much appreciate those spaces for allowing us to have things there. But at some point, you're going to want a gala or something, and they have to serve alcohol, and they don't going to do that at a church.
Well, yeah, no First Baptist.
Right.
As a member, I could tell you, it'd get the definite side eye from the deacons, but whatever.
But it would be nice to have in a venue maybe 500 seats and things. But again, city-run things tend to not make money.
Right.
You know, we're not in the business of making money.
That was Larry's position. He did not want to take on a city obligation. Now, when I first thought about this venue thing, I thought along the lines of Cleburne's situation. When you attach it to some sort of hotel and the golf course and all this other business. To me, it's like I don't really have a preferred way to get it done, just as long as it gets done. But we do need something.
I would agree. Yeah. And if we get a nice hotel, like a Marriott or something that would bring people here, that you can make it a part of that. But again, that costs money to build the hotel, and you have to find somebody to want to do all that.
The example I keep using, I used with Larry, was the Omni in Fort Worth. That was partly subsidized by the city, but they, did they get their money back? I don't know if they have already, but they are getting more convention business. And you're also, because you get more convention business, you're also getting other hotels popping up. They just opened a new one last week downtown Fort Worth. I mean, there's another one going up, and of course, Fort Worth is growing. It's now the 13th largest city and all that. Yeah. But I always thought if we had a private partnership, a private-public partnership, the hotel operator and come in, put a hotel here, connect to it, maybe have its own event center. We wouldn't have to go maybe to Fort Worth for the prom, that kind of stuff, and also having a golf course there, and upgraded golf course. I think we'd do great business right on the highway, in the county where we are. Because, you don't want to mess with all the crap downtown Fort Worth. You can, in the lack of parking and all that other business, you could really do something with it. And, but again, I'm not saying it has to be done the way I think it has to be done. I just think it needs something like that needs to be done.
Right.
But Larry's point was that any city that gets involved in that all by itself ends up spending more money than they're making.
Right.
And then, do you agree with that?
Yes. I mean, we're not, like I said, we're not in the business of operating something like that, but I we definitely need to look at doing it sooner than later.
Well, sooner or later, I think the first step is going to be, the sale of the softball fields and all this other business. And it's going to be a while. I mean, we're not talking about next year. This may be a decade-long process. I hope I'm still around. I'm an old man. I hope I'm still around if something like this happens. But that's going to be I'm sure that's going to be on a topic of conversation quite a bit.
Right. At least we're talking about it.
Yeah. Well, they've have a plan on it already. They finished a study on it in 2019. I did not know that till recently. It was emailed, it was emailed to me, and they've been talking about this for a decade close, about altering the purposes of the golf course and bringing in this kind of situation. So this is not something that has come up in the last week or two or last year or two. It's been on the mind of previous councils since I believe 2014. So. And that's kind of how these things work. It just takes a long time. Okay, well, we're getting close to the end here. I want you to be able to tell us everything that you'd want us to know about you. Why I know you don't have an opponent, but why I personally am glad you're going to be in the council. Why should somebody else be glad that you're going to be on the council?
Like I said, I've been involved with the city since 2016. I got on planning and zoning, and because I wanted to get more involved, but I wasn't ready to run for council. And then when this seat opened up, I thought, looking at next year too, that this is probably the perfect opportunity, because now I've had enough experience on P&Z. My work position, I've been in banking. My educational background is in finance and law, and so.
Where'd you go to school again?
I went to undergrad at SMU. Got a finance degree, and then I went to law school at Texas Tech.
Okay.
So I don't practice, but I tell you, in law school, you learn that the answer to every question is it depends.
It depends. Well, you said good for that.
Yes. So, and there's always another way. I mean, there's just it changes how you think about things. And I just really think because I do budgeting and auditing and things, and I don't know if we've had a banker on there since Russ Richardson. He was in the early 90s.
Yeah,
and
it's been a
so,
while,
and I don't,
yeah.
and I was trying to think of anybody after him that would have been a banker, but
Yeah.
I think I just felt that if I'm going to do it, now's the time, and I'm ready for it.
I think you're perfectly positioned for it because we do need a banker on it. We also, the P&Z issues, which is probably one of the primary committees that one can serve on. Obviously, you have the academic background, and you have the family. I mean, that's a good thing to have. You have the support of your family.
Right. That was the main thing. I got that first.
Yes.
And then decided to do that. And so, and I wanted to have some experience, especially working with the city before just jumping in.
So when you asked Miss Martha, "Can I run?" What did she jump up and down and say, "You bet," or is she like,
"Oh yeah," she said, I always thought I'd marry a politician. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Is that a good thing to say?
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't strike me as a politician, though. Really, you seem pretty careful in your answers, and you don't make frivolous promises, and I appreciate that because, I was talking to Larry about this also. I keep referring to our last conversation. It's not like I'm choosing when I have a vote. I'm not choosing somebody who's going to do as I say all the time. It's do I have the trust in this person to make the right decision, even if I don't agree with it. I'm very, very fond of Victoria, and she's made a couple of choices that, okay, but I trust her. And I trust that she's investigated the situation and that she's doing the right thing. And so I'm like, okay, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Because that's what I'm looking for. And anybody I vote for is not that they're going to vote the way I want them to vote on every occasion, but will they have the integrity to do the homework and find out what the real best answers and what is best for whatever organization we're talking about, community, schools, et cetera. And if I can live with that a whole lot more than somebody that's telling me I'm going to give you the stars and the moon and cake for breakfast or whatever else. So,
right. And transparency is key. I mean, I'll be very approachable if somebody wants to ask me why I voted the way I did, I'll be glad to tell them. Mm-hmm. And so it's all about.
Yeah. Well, David Hadley here says, "Good job, guys. Well done." Thank you, David, for that. I hope he answered your question adequately. I don't know if I didn't butcher it up too much, but we have 2.5 weeks to go.
Right.
Taylor, do you have the Larry Scott video?
Yes.
I'd like to end the show with this, and then we'll say goodbye afterwards.
Okay.
Who holds the reins to your community's future? Who wields authority over the management of your tax dollars? How did they attain such power? Hi, I am Larry Scott, a candidate for Burleson City Council, Place 4. Your local government leaders have a profound effect over your day-to-day life. That's why local elections are equally, if not more crucial, than national elections. Your vote in local elections can determine the course of your community, especially the allocation of your tax funds. The candidate you elect will be responsible for crucial issues like taxes, public safety, infrastructure, and community development. These officials will prioritize specific programs and services, and your participation in local elections is critical if you wish to have a say in how your community is governed. These are also the ones that will listen to your concerns and take steps to assure that your community needs are met. By voting in local elections, you can feel a greater sense of influence, empowerment, connection, and community involvement, all while contributing to a more robust and representative democracy. So who holds the reins of your community's future? Voters. Who wields authority over the management of your tax dollars? Voters. How did they attain such power? By registering to vote and showing up on Election Day. My name is Larry Scott, and I'm a candidate for Burleson City Council, Place 4. And I strongly encourage you to exercise your right to vote in our next City Council election on Saturday, May 6th.
Pretty good message, right?
It is.
Miss Martha is asking you to
That's right.
let us know where people
Let's
are to
segue.
vote.
Okay, for those listening, there will be no voting at City Hall this year for the city election. If you live in Johnson County, it will be at the Burleson Subcourthouse. And those dates are Monday, April 24th through Friday, April 28th, 8 to 5. That's for early voting. And then Saturday, April 29th, 7 to 7. And then Monday, May 1st through Monday, May 2nd, 7 to 7. And then on Election Day, it'll be 7 to 7, May 6th at the Subcourthouse. If you live in Tarrant County portion of Burleson, you can vote at any polling place in Tarrant County. The closest one to us is the Crouch Event Center here in Crowley at 900 East Glendale Street. And those dates are April 24th through 28th, 8 to 5, early voting. Saturday, April 29th, 7 to 7. They also are doing a Sunday, April 30th, 10 to 4, and then Monday, May 1st and 2nd, 7 to 7, and then, of course, Election Day. And Election Day in Tarrant County is also at any polling place.
Well, the majority will be probably at the sub-courthouse.
Correct. Yeah, the bulk of Burleson is 90% in Johnson County. So.
Right, and also we have the school board races going to be held there. And, of course, a decent piece of BSD is in Tarrant County, so that'll be good to know.
And just know that, the results, Tarrant County is electronic. Johnson County is the good old bubble in.
Yeah.
And so they take the votes from Burleson to Cleburne to count them, and then we get the results back. So it's probably not going to be till 9 or 10 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
So everybody knows.
Well, I am confident that this city council coming up, the next version of it is going to be a good one, because you and Larry are going to make great additions. Phil Anderson, I don't want to be presumptuous, but I think he'll win his election. And he'll make another good member. So the three of y'all that are almost assuredly coming in are going to be a really good addition to the board. As far as the mayor's race, it takes care of itself. And we'll talk about that on another show at another time. So there you go. Thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the good information. I strongly encourage people that hear the show, pass this around the internet there, make it viral, so we can get the right information out there. Because, sometimes people get on the internet and they see something on Facebook and think it's true. That ain't always the case. So you hear from the people that know. Tomorrow I have Rob Duke. He will be running for place 3 on the school board, and I look forward to that. And also on Thursday, I have Kyle Geller from Centennial and Deanna Newton from Burleson High School. We're going to talk about various things, athletics and all. Deanna Newton is the girls coordinator. Kyle Geller is the boys coordinator, among their other coaching duties. And also we have a special show on Friday with Caleb Mitchell, who's running for place 4 of the school board. A very fine man, and we'll get to know him even better. So we'll see y'all tomorrow at this time. Y'all take care.